Hey guys, Shane Wood, and I'm downtown here to bring you yet another absolutely incredible business. And this is one that we've been waiting for quite a while. I'm so glad I could finally connect with them and put this thing together. You're gonna love it. But listen, first, before we get going, do me a favor. If you like small business and you're loving some of this small business content and meeting the owners and getting to know what they do, please also go to our Facebook page, Port Orchard Ford, like and follow us there, and look at some of the old videos we've done, and so that we can keep bringing this stuff to you, our community. Now listen, I'm down here at Revival Pacific Northwest with Sam and Josh Smith. They also own Josephine's across the street. We're gonna talk to them, get to know them a little bit better, figure out how they brought all of this together, and kind of talk about what they do. Come on inside and let's take a look. Okay, so I'm down here with Sam. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
I'm excited to be here, to have you come in here. So,
good. Yeah, I tell you what, it's been one of these things that I've actually wanted to do this business, your business, in Josephine's for quite some time. It's just, I mean, you're such a busy go-getter, you know, it's hard to tie you down. So thank you for finding some time.
No, I'm excited, thank you.
So got a couple of questions. The point of this is to kind of let the community, and you know so many people, but to let those who don't get to know you a little bit more, get to know what these businesses have to offer a little bit better. So my first question is basically, Revival is the new store.
Yeah.
Josephine's you've had for a while. Tell me about Josephine's and tell me about your grandma and how all of this started.
So I have had Josephine's a little over 8 years now, and I worked in mental health for a long time. I was a behavior interventionist, so I worked with kids with autism, and my husband and I had struggled to have a baby. Yeah. And we were finally able to have one, but I would go home at night and have no capacity to really be a mom that I wanted to be. I was just drained. Anybody, especially right now in the school district that's working, it's a hard job. And so I actually opened Josephine's. It was in Annapolis. And I opened it because I just wanted something to give back to myself. So it was 500 square feet. It was in a really kind of danky building that had rat issues, and you could hear the water hit the bottom of the floor. Right. But I just worked it on weekends. I talked to my dad. We were actually taking my daughter to El Monte one time, and I told him, I said, because he's a small business owner, I was like, I really just want to open something, and I think Port Orchard would love something like a vintage thing. And I named it after my grandma Josephine because she loved vintage. And I say she loved vintage, but she was vintage. Right. So everything in her house was vintage. She repurposed everything. She was a kid during the Depression era, so nothing was thrown away. Right. And I just love that mentality of repurposing and saving and keeping. And so I opened Josephine's, and it was me and some friends, and they brought in items, and at that time the huge vintage market had just kind of really exploded. Yep. And it just kind of took off. And so I did that for a couple of years, and then I realized I wanted something more. So that's when I started to kind of, I guess, elevate or grow my mindset of what Josephine's could be. Wow. Yeah. Wow,
that's incredible. I love hearing about your grandma and just the ties to the heart that brought to the business.
Yeah, she and my grandpa Bud, he actually used to be the mall janitor at the SK Mall, and if anybody's from South Kitsap, they probably remember him. Wow. He was in a full blue janitorial suit. He would always yell at you for sliding down the escalators, but at night he would let us grandkids run the mall and do that. But my grandma Jo graduated in South in 1942. It was called Skookum then. My parents, we moved here when I was 2 months old from Arizona, but I always say I was born and bred here.
I moved here when I was 2 months old from Arizona as well.
Really?
Yeah.
What town?
I was from Page, Arizona.
Oh yeah, up north. Yeah. I was from Ajo. It's really close to the border. So it was a little mining town, and we moved up here because my grandpa wanted to give us a better life. So, and he did. So we moved up here. My mom and dad met, and he's my dad. And anyway, so Bud and Joe are just kind of the heart of it for me because they were community members. My grandma and grandpa met because my grandpa sounds really kind of sketch, but he was a bus driver. Yeah. And he had just gotten out of the war, and my grandma was 18, he was 21, and they met. And I've always heard stuff about downtown. So my grandpa would drive, I would drive with him, and he'd be, oh, there's Hal Ford, and there's the hardware store, and that's where the candy shop used to be. And so I think my love for Port Orchard started at a really young age, and just being really appreciative of the history that we have down here. So yeah.
Well, I honestly, I feel like I could talk to you for hours about the history, because you're really well versed with it. It's really interesting. So speaking of history, Josephine's just celebrated 8 years. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's really great. And part of that 8 years was last year through COVID.
Yeah.
And you open a new business, this one this year.
Yeah.
And, you know, so with so much of a storm going on in the universe out there, how have you been able to thrive and keep one business open and then bring another one together? Like, what's been the key there?
I think the key for me was, I'm a big believer in God. That's my first thing, is I had to have faith that if God gave me the vision for these shops, that he would provide, however that was, which is so scary, especially during COVID. And I guess I would say God, my family, and community, because my community kept me open. During COVID, it was really rapid, and sorry, I'm not going to try to cry, but
no, it's good.
My husband and I had a miscarriage in October, and then about 4 months later, my grandma, who had Alzheimer's, passed away rapidly, and it was 5 days before COVID. And all of a sudden, I kind of got not out of this world, but I lost my grandma, so I was mourning, and then all of a sudden it was like, COVID's kind of spreading, we're gonna shut down. I was like, what do you mean we're gonna shut down? And for me, it's not just about me over at Josephine's, which Revival wasn't open then. I have like 22 people that I'm responsible for. I have vendors, I have staff, I have people that kind of rent spaces from me. And so I thought, okay, God, I don't have the capacity to do this right now. And so at the time I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. So we were just told, literally, it's Friday, you're closing Monday, you're not going to be open. Wow. And my landlord was amazing. There was grants out there. The vendors rallied behind me, and my community. So I started doing Facebook Lives, which I don't like doing videos because of this reason, but we would do lives and we would sell stuff. And you know, it's hard because we might make what we would make in a week. We would make what we would make in a day, and it would take us 2 weeks to make that. And it literally maybe kept the power on. Right. It kept the water going, and that was about it. But you know, we had some savings that we pulled from, like I said, there was a PPP grant. So we just kind of got through it. And it was one of those things that when COVID was over, I wanted to know that we were still here. And it's really our community. They just rallied and bought stuff they didn't need to. Just was amazing. Yeah. So, yeah.
Wow. Thank you, first of all, for sharing that and getting vulnerable. I talk a lot about, and let me just say this, guys, if you don't feel purpose and passion coming from this one right here, if your why don't make you cry, it's not your why. Yeah. Okay, so, but thank you for sharing that, and congrats on grinding through, right? I mean, that's what that was. You said, we're gonna get through this, and you did. So good job. One of the things you mentioned was the Facebook Live, and I love that because as a business, you know, a lot of people miss, you know, some of the marketing aspects that can go into it to help create the success that we're looking for. And as I was researching these two stores, I realized, like, you guys have an incredible Facebook page and following, frankly. And tell me about you know, how you realize how important social presence can be for the business, who manages that, and what ultimately you put on there. Yeah,
I think I have a team now that's kind of coming around and managing it because it's kind of outgrown me. Yeah. I started it just kind of, hey, it's Sam, and talking with people, stuff like that. But it's kind of grown, and especially with two businesses. And we also typically do a show called Redeem Revival out at the Kitsap County Fairgrounds, and that has a huge following. Yeah. So there's all these different avenues. But I realized my business is built on social media. I'll be honest, I haven't taken out a lot of newspaper ads. I haven't done a lot of that stuff. I believe that my business is not just about selling a product to somebody, but it's a relational business, and it's an experience. And so, especially in Joe's, when I started, I wanted people to come in and just have this feeling of being at grandma's house. And that's how I feel over there. So I went on Facebook and just started promoting the business, the products, meeting the owner, meeting the vendors, and kind of built from there, doing Facebook Lives, which I'm uncomfortable doing them. A lot of women are. You're just like, you don't want to get on there, and you think people are at home. And I thought, forget that. You just kind of sometimes have to get past yourself and go, it's for a greater cause.
Yep.
And I realized during COVID, I would have people that would message me and say, I literally tune into you. I don't have any money to buy anything, but I just love being in a room with you.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm like, okay, that's all I need, because I truly believe if you give to your community, it'll come back one way. If it's love, if it's a referral, if it's a purchase, it all happens that way. And so I think that people that aren't on social media are wasting an amazing tool that's free.
Absolutely.
Like, you can boost posts and do all that stuff, but it's such a great thing. And so right now I have a team. I've hired kind of a small media team that's helping me with graphics and photos. And then my staff, I have the best staff in Port Orchard. I would love anybody to challenge me on
right.
that.
Yeah.
But they're creative. A lot of them are younger because I lost my staff at COVID. A lot of them were older, moms, all of that stuff. And so my teens rose up and said, we'll wear masks all day. We'll get yelled at by people.
Sure.
You can't do anything right these days. And they stepped up, and they're also super creative.
Yeah.
So they've helped with post and with marketing. But to me, Facebook is an opportunity, and Instagram, all those social media, to step into somebody's home. And so when I am given that honor, I take it very seriously and want to be as authentic as possible. So.
Wow. Yeah. Well, a couple of points I want to follow up with. Business owners. The reason I do these lives is it gives our community, or these videos, is it gives our community a chance to meet the people behind the business that they don't always have that exposure to, right? And what I love about, I'll tell you, this video in particular is I have, you who's been very authentic, and I love that. I just do. There's a lot of stress and just, things that go into trying to accomplish all these things that we're trying to accomplish in our lives. But like you said, when you just pour into people and you give and you give and you give, it may not always be directly. Sometimes it's a little roundabout thing, but you always receive back, and that's why you get so much more support than maybe some of the other businesses.
Like I said, I'm a believer, and it says I truly believe you reap what you sow.
Yeah.
And my thing is, I will reap and reap and reap, and I know God will bring it in one way or another. I could literally over the last year go, oh my gosh, that was such a big blessing. Being in this building is a big blessing. I have looked at this building for, I would say, at least 10 years. I love this building that we're in Revival. And so for it to open up and to work out during COVID when other people are shutting down, it's not because I'm special. I believe it's because I've reaped in my community, and it's just come back.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I will disagree. You are special, but I want to talk about this building as a Ford guy. So I'm down at Port Orchard Ford. I know who Howe is. Howe was the original Ford store in Port Orchard, and then later bought by Bay Ford, the Quisenberries, and then Bruce bought it.
Yeah.
So this is the original Howe Ford store.
Yes. So many people from South Kitsap, I graduated in the mid-90s, but we'll remember it used to be Sydney or Sydney Village. And so you would be able to come in here, and it was like a mercantile almost of shopping. And when I came in here as a kid, the ceilings were as high as they are in here now. But I've always loved it because a lot of the original stuff is still in here. And so Howe started, I believe, in 1923. And they had a hardware store in the same building but next door. And I think the Howe's cars were just coming out. And so literally you wouldn't get a car that would just drive in the lot or be brought on a trailer like we do now. You would get pieces.
Right.
And so in this room, they would get the pieces and they would assemble them on this gantry cranes and push them along, assemble them, and then they would drive them out the front door of the shop and upstairs, and that's where their showroom was. And my grandpa would tell me about that. And I've had a lot of customers come in and go, this used to be where we assembled cars. And it was really cool because I think they were here until about the mid-60s.
Right.
And but the Howes are kind of a cornerstone of Port Orchard. There was like Howes Bed and Breakfast here in Port Orchard. They were just a really well-known family, but I love that they saw the vision, because who knew cars were going to be a big thing in 1923? Right. I mean, stick with the horses.
Did.
Yeah,
I'll
they
say
did.
That. Ford did.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So yeah. Now you look up at some of these things, and they're holding up some of the amazing art, and this guy is absolutely just precious. But so fittingly, your husband Josh, is a metal worker, owns his own metal business, and obviously you guys do a lot of different products for different people. In fact, this is actually one of them. This piece, nice wood slab with the metal down below. So you guys do sell some of those products here, and and at Josephine's?
Pretty much here now. Josephine's is primarily vintage, antique, repurposed. We did have a spot over there, but I've always felt like this room was meant for his pieces. So we had Josephine's for, I'd say, at least 3 to 4 years before he started building. I was like, we were in Seattle one day and I was like, I love that shelf, but we were poor small business owners.
Right.
And it was like $1,800. He's like, oh, I could build that for you. And I was like, you can? He goes, yeah, I have my welder. I'll just whip it together. I mean, he just didn't whip it together, but it was substantially less. And I was like, oh, so he built that for me. And then people started coming in. They're like, well, can I buy that? I'm like, well, no, that's my shelf. And so I started seeing a market for it. And I don't think he ever saw himself as a small business owner. He saw himself as the small business owner's husband. And I was like, no, you're a great creator and maker. And so he started just thinking of ideas and dreaming of ideas and started fabricating them, and they've kind of just taken off. We haven't, he works a full-time job, so we haven't been able to push, but we're in this season now of where we can start really pushing his product and bringing it to the next level of business, and that's kind of what we're doing now. And I'm excited because it's a product that I can 110% stand behind. It's a quality product that if you go somewhere else, you'll probably find it for 3 times the amount that we would sell it for here.
Oh, yeah.
You reap what you sow. So I want to give people a good deal. They'll come back.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boy, it's interesting. Skylar is our camera guy. Hi, Skylar. We're just talking about a book I'm reading called Creative Calling. And it's interesting how many people don't realize the amazing amount of energy they have within them to create this amazing stuff, and good on him and good on you for seeing that and just pushing that out
for
there.
me, that's one of the most exciting things. So when you go to Josephine's, you'll see, I would say 8 or 9 of the vendors never thought they were going to be vendors, and they would come in and they would work for me. And like my girlfriend Bethany, I was talking about candles one day and I was like, I'm really trying to find a good candle line, but I want it to be local. And she's like, well, how about if I make some for you? And I'm like, okay, let's try it out. And she comes and she's like, well, let's sell them. I said, why don't you make the business and I'll buy them from you? And there's quite a few vendors over there, like Old Soul Vintage and the Country Daisy. We're all just my friends. Actually, Old Soul Vintage, she was 16 when she started with me and does these amazing woodwork pieces.
Wow.
But I love seeing people's creativity come out, because I think there's something in all of us, whatever it might be. And I think it just sometimes takes a little nudging from somebody else. And I know people are like, well, aren't you worried that they're going to compete against you? And I was like, no, I have more people on my team now. It's a bigger, stronger field. So yeah.
Gosh, boy, mindset is everything. I love listening to you. I really do. Yeah, I mean, and one thing that I've noticed when it comes to this entrepreneurial spirit is a lot of that has been kind of forced as businesses have been forced to close, jobs have been furloughed or whatever.
Yeah.
And so there have been a number of people that have just kind of, I'm just going to start doing my own thing, whatever that might be. So, speaking of employees, you've got a lot of amazing employees, and I agree with you. Like, everyone here is dialed. But who is? I'm gonna put you on the spot. Like, who is your right hand? Who is, if you're not here, who do you want your favorite customer to talk to?
My favorite customer to talk to would probably be Carol.
Okay.
She knows everybody in Port Orchard. She has a love for Port Orchard like I do. And actually Hunter, and he's my 20-year-old kid that I got, first time job. He started during COVID, and I will get it from women all the time, like, I just love that young man in there, and he is such a phenomenal rarity that I hear people go, well, young kids these days, they don't understand hustle, they don't understand grind or work. And I'm like, my kid does. I call them my kids, but my staff does. And so he just makes every person, and Carol, every person that come in feel like they were special. And that's part of the experience, because they are. Like, let's be honest, downtown is still growing. So it's not like another big port town that you go in and you're just there naturally. Like, if you come to Port Orchard, you're typically coming for something.
Right.
So I want people to feel like they came and they were honored and they were respected. And then as far as like details, I would definitely say I have Anna and Morgan now. Anna's one of our managers, and Morgan's kind of like a shop lead, as we call her. And Morgan's a senior in high school.
Right.
But I've had her since she was 16. And
wow.
They're kind of, I'll always, my poor staff, I will like, can we do this? Can we do this? Can we do this? And I'm just kind of spitting out things, and then they can kind of weed through that and go, okay, let's do this now. Let's do this now. because I am a business owner, but my heart is really creativity. I didn't know what a P&L sheet was, which is profit and loss, until a year ago.
Yeah.
I didn't have it because my heart was never business, it's community. I love people, but I'm learning that part. But those people support me. And then all my vendors at Joe's, they make me look good. They really do. Like, I have a space, but they make me look good. So, you know, even Farmer Rosie, I mean, people think it's my cafe. It's not, it's all her, but she makes me look good. So it's definitely, people will go, Josephine, you have a great shop. Well, and I always call Josephine, so I just take it. But it's really a collective. Something this big is not one person driven, but yeah.
Wow, moving lives forward, right?
Yeah.
I mean, one person at a time. It's incredible what you've put people in the position to do, and they've stepped up, and they're, you know, becoming the amazing people that they can be.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so here we are. Life is good. You know, business is good. You're surrounded by amazing people. You know, what are you trying to accomplish? Like, what's your purpose here? What are you ultimately trying to do?
I don't know. That's a crazy question. I talked to my mentor a couple days ago. I've known him since I was 14. I'm like, I just feel like I never rest. My family's taken a lot of sacrifices. We have a 10-year-old daughter now, and that's all she's ever known is the shop. So with being a small business owner, as you know, like being a GM, business is always pops up. It's not a 9 to 5. You don't clock out at 5 and go home. There's always something. And for me, I'm a creative type, so I can't stop thinking. So right now, we just re-signed another lease for our other building. So we're definitely in downtown for a few more years, which I'm excited about. I would eventually love to maybe own my own building one day, but I'm not sure. I think for me, the next couple of years is just going to be enhancing what I have and seeing what we have and growing it, and like the local that we're going to be opening. I thrive when I see other people thrive. I don't know if it's a selfish thing, but I just love seeing other people thrive, and it makes me feel good. So I'm excited to see what those next couple of years look like as we come out of COVID, hopefully, as people see the talents that they have that they never knew. I think it's perfectly okay to work a job and have a side gig. I think it's a great thing. I think that you need to have multiple revenue streams. And I think people, they need that creative outlet. So for me, in the next couple of years, I want to elevate what I have. Revival is far from what I want it. I've learned when people come in and go, oh, you have an amazing shop, I would always say, oh, well, thanks, but I want to do this and do this. And a person one day, Sam, just said, stop and just say thank you. And I'm like, what? Thank you. She's like, yeah, just appreciate what you have. But I'm excited to see it grow. And honestly, I have been in Port Orchard, technically in the city of Port Orchard, for 8 years now. I'm excited to see the city come alive.
Me too.
I am excited to see people from Port Orchard come and go, that's my hometown. That is amazing. They come home on Christmas time and stuff and go, gosh, I come from a great community. I'm excited to be one person that's helping trailblaze that part of Port Orchard. So
one question I was going to ask you is, you know, what does Port Orchard need? And we're in a pretty good place right now, but I'll go ahead and answer that myself. What we need is more people just like you. And thank you for, you know, bringing me in, letting me be in this space with you, get to know you a little bit better, introducing us to the business. You're fantastic.
Oh, thank
you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming.
Awesome.
Thanks.
All right. Well, that's it for us, guys. You guys have a blessed day. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye.